Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming through and joining us. And welcome to My Biggest Blunders, stories of entrepreneurs failing forward. We've got two amazing stories. And I'm looking forward to the session. The entrepreneurs are here. You are here. I'm looking forward to what's in store and the stories that are coming through. And I'm definitely sure you're going to enjoy them. And I'm hopeful that if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat to fire away your questions, and I'll pose those questions to the speakers. So I'll just take you through quickly. Let's just start. I think it's a good thing. Let's just start the session. We've got so much to cover. So what is my biggest blunders, right? I think that's the biggest question that I always get, is basically what we have realized when we talk entrepreneurship, we talk success. There's always this notion that success is a straight line. It's a linear thing. You move from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until you get to the eureka moment and you succeed. But we know that success is, the real truth is that success is not a straight line. Success is not linear. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail along the way. And most of the time, we don't talk about our blunders, isn't it? We don't talk about our failures. And we think that, and therefore people end up thinking that entrepreneurship is this rosy thing, just work hard and persevere and boom, you'll succeed. And we know that it's not. I mean, today is the 30th. Quite interesting. I just got a call, in fact, a WhatsApp message from one of my former students and an entrepreneur as well. At 7:30, he says, "Can you talk?" Like what? I'm like, okay, call me in 10 minutes. And he calls and he's like, Kulove, I need to make payments. The client has not paid. I need to pay salaries. I need to pay transport. The driver is waiting. He says, if you don't pay me, I'm not taking your stuff to work, And I had like an hour discussion with this guy. Month end is the least favorite day for entrepreneurs, really, because of those challenges. And we hardly talk about this. So My Biggest Blunders is a platform for people who, we are saying, be vulnerable, talk about your blunder, talk about the mistake that you made, and talk about the lessons that you have made, so that you have learned. So we started in March 2020, when COVID happened. We started, we thought, okay, let's just have these sessions. We're all locked down anyway, so it's not like we have so much to do, right? So let's have the sessions. Let's be open. Let's be vulnerable. Every time you go to a conference, it's always about success, how I made it, and all those things. And those are important. But we all know that that's not the real complete story, right? That's not what really, really, really happens. We know that there are times where you haven't made budget. You can't pay rent, you can't pay salaries. There are times where you have to fire people. There are times where you are depressed. You lost this big account and you are thinking that if I can close this account, everything will be okay. And you lose it and you have got no one to talk to, right? There's tears, there's all these different difficult challenges. So we decided, instead of talking about successes and all these rosy things, let's talk about failures. Let's have a session where we talk about failures, where we are vulnerable, we are open, and we talk about failures. So far, we have had over 40 stories. I think it's 50, I'm not so sure, but I know that we have had, since 2010, we have had so many stories of entrepreneurs, artists coming to being vulnerable and talking about their struggles. And we have uploaded those talks on YouTube. And of course, we are asking you to subscribe so that as we upload these talks on YouTube, you are able to get to see them and share them with others as well. So we are on YouTube. If you don't mind subscribing, My Biggest Blunders on YouTube, you'll find talks already there of the previous sessions that we have had. And yeah, different lessons, different mistakes to learn from. Right. So this is the page. You'll see I think we are sitting at almost 117 or so subscribers. You'll see there's different talks, there's different performances, there's different artists, there's different stories that you can pick up from there. Great. So the agenda for tonight, two main speakers, Brigitta Zwani, all the way from Francistown in Botswana. Nonku also will come do a performance. It's basically, she runs a performing artist company, and they do poems and theater acting. And then, of course, we'll wrap up the session with Carel Motshekga, who's an entrepreneur. Please, colleagues, comments, questions, complaints, right? Please put them on chat. We'll ask the speakers, they are here. I have quite a lot of questions to ask them. And yeah, we are looking forward to the session. Oh yes, the t-shirt. If you want the t-shirt, apparently some people are saying they're nice, place an order. We just got our first batch, and we'll obviously share the catalog with you in due time. But thank you so much. So how it's gonna work is we have a speaker. We have pre-recorded the talks, mainly because when we started these sessions, they were on Facebook. So we're doing Facebook Live, and we invite speakers from all over the continent, from Ghana, from Zimbabwe, Botswana, Rwanda. And what would happen is, because we are on Facebook Live, the network would be so terrible that as the speaker is talking, giving their talk, and then they get cut off or they get kicked out and things like that. So we have decided, rather, let's pre-record the talks and let's come and share them with you. So how it works is we have pre-recorded the talks. We're gonna play the talks, and note your questions, note your comments. And what's gonna happen is, after the talk, we'll then have the speaker coming through, and I'll have an interaction with the speaker. And if there are any questions that you have, questions from the floor, as they say, we'll take them, and then we'll move on to the next speaker, and so on until we are done. So our first speaker, all the way from Francistown, they call it the ghetto. I'm not so sure if they're quite thrilled with that, but north of Botswana. She's an author. She's written 3 books, quite amazing books. I've read one, and I was blown away from that book. And we decided that we should actually invite her to come and share a story. Brigitta Zwani, Bridget, she's got AKAs. So she's her story is quite an interesting story, and we have tried to do things slightly different from our previous sessions. Previously, we would have a speaker doing a full-on talk, but today we have done it slightly different, and it will be interesting to hear your feedback on that. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome on the My Biggest Blunder stage, Brigitta Zwani. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong. Okay. So it happens. There we go. So it happens. Okay, let's see. That's the one. Awesome. Great. Take it away, Bridget.
My biggest blunder.
The biggest blunder I've done in business.
My definite biggest blunder.
Well, depending on how you look at it, it's probably from all
Yeah, I'm a girl from a little village up north of Botswana called Motekha. It's actually a Kalanga area. My dad is full on Kalanga, but my mom is half Kalanga, half Zulu. Yeah, so growing up, writing was not something that I actually thought about or thought about pursuing. I only discovered that I enjoyed writing when I was at boarding school in Maung, which is also north of Botswana, but on the western side of Botswana. So I used to write short stories and short poems. But then when I went to university, which was in Malaysia for 4 years, I was pursuing a degree in mass communications. My major was journalism. And I remember when I went for the orientation, like after you finish high school, you go for like an orientation where these universities then kind of pitch and say, oh, come to us, or come to us. But then there was one at Limcook Wing. There was, where they showcased whatever it was that they wanted us to see. And the lady asked me what I enjoyed doing. And I said, I enjoyed writing. And that's how I actually pursued this degree in mass communications and actually majoring in journalism. But when I was at university, I realized I actually don't like writing news or writing hardcore news. What I enjoyed doing was writing, fiction, like stories. So yeah, that is how it all started. But after university, I actually started blogging. And then my poems were kind of like darkish because, as a teen, you go through stuff, and then the only outlet that you actually have is either drinking, some smoke, some take drugs. I delved into writing, and was my outlet. So writing novels was also something that I never thought about. I just thought, let me just write my poems and just blog, and that was it. It was actually a process. I published my first book, which is The Shrink, this one, in 2018. The idea actually came to me when I was a temp. After finishing university in 2010, I then took like a sabbatical and I went on holiday in England for like 8 months or something ridiculous like that. And then when I came back, that's when, reality hits. You're supposed to start working, make money, and all that stuff. So I was a temp in 2011, and I was working for this organization, NACA, and they were actually doing the counseling kids that would come to the clinics, not kids per se, but like adolescents that were going through, either abuse or, in relationships or parents or whatever kind of abuse that they were going through. So when one came to the clinic and the doctors noticed something, they would then send them to this counseling, facility where I was, and I was just transcribing. So my job was just to sit quietly and just, take notes. So then I realized that these youngsters were actually not opening up to the counselors, and they were finding it very hard. They would just give like tidbits of information, which made it quite difficult for the counselor to actually do their job. And around that time, there was a popular comic called Super Strikers that was circulating around Botswana for free. And I remember thinking, ooh, wouldn't this be fantastic if I came up with a story or a storyline with different characters, and these different characters had different problems, and then we could delve into the characters' families and things like that to address certain issues that these adolescents were going through. And that is how The Shrink is actually conceptualized, because the story is about this lady called Tebogo, who is Motswana, and then her mom gets married to, a person in the UK or a person of UK descent. But eventually when she finishes university and she comes back to Botswana, And then she's hired by Motekha High as the school counselor. And then she addresses different topics or different things that the youth in her school go through. Things like drug abuse, rape, I can't say the word. Dyslexia, yes, that's it. And things like that. So she goes through that kind of process, as well as, you know, living her life as well. So yeah, that's how that was the idea. The idea was that it was supposed to be a comic, not a book. But I think my mistake was assuming that this big, great idea that would like solve so many problems, a lot of organizations would then rally up behind me and buy into the concept. But then one day, as I was, you know, in Gaborone, the capital city of Botswana, knocking on doors, asking for sponsorship and things like that, somebody advised me, you know what, why don't you write a book so that when you're actually knocking at these doors, people can see something tangible and can say, oh, okay, we'll buy into your idea. And that's how Brigitta Zwani was born. You feel the journey. I stumbled across an article actually when I was working in Gaborone. I got a full-time job at that time. And when I was working there, actually, part of my job was to go through newspapers every single morning and do a media report for some of the clients that we had. So then I stumbled across an article about, you know, a tourist. His name was Nick Green. And at the time he was based in Maung. And he had written a book, Warriors, which was a combination of short stories and poems. The book then motivated me to actually pursue the idea of writing a book. Because this person that had advised me, oh, why don't you write a book? I was like, I'm just so used to writing poetry and short stories. I don't think I can actually write a book. And I feared, you know, not being good enough or being criticized, this, that, and the other. So after reading this book by Nick Green, I contacted him. I actually bought the book. Then we had a chat. And after reading the book, that's when I actually got the confidence of, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can actually pursue a writing career. And at the time, I was actually I was freelancing for a local magazine called La Poloja. So I think that also kind of built my confidence a bit. But I think with writing a book and self-publishing, you kind of, because you're going into uncharted waters, you've never done this before, you assume a lot of things and you presume a lot of things. And I think that's where my blunders were. So when I was writing my novel, I didn't know that self-publishing would be such a ginormous task. And I was convinced, well, I also didn't have the tools that would actually assist me in getting published. So it was a lot of research that needed to be done and a lot of mistakes here, there, and everywhere. For one, I didn't have the money to publish. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to fumble through it and I'll do pre-orders. So that's how I started. I started by doing pre-orders. And then my assumption, yet again a blunder, is that, oh yeah, the pre-orders will cover, you know, the book cover cost, the editing cost, the printing costs. And then there are other costs here, there, and everywhere that you just don't realize that are there because you're just looking at these major costs and then you don't look at like the little other costs that actually add up and then become quite a big thing. So I think, yeah, my mistakes, the mistake of the shrink, actually, the mistakes that I made on the shrink kind of like trickled into hope and have trickled as well into the sign. It's like I've got selective amnesia.
Okay.
Well, when I say selective and niche, I'll tell you, I'll go through each book. So The Shrink was actually pegged to be launched December of 2017. People had pre-ordered. I was actually working at a school, which is very ironic because the book is based on like a school setting. And what's funny is that before I even started working at that school, the book had been done. It was complete. I just was fearful of publishing, and also because I didn't have the know-how of what am I supposed to do after finishing the manuscripts. What's the next step, you know? So yeah, the school that I was working at, I had quite a lot of support because a lot of them actually pre-ordered, as well as parents, you know, a lot of support from there. And then come launch date December, the books happened to arrive, right? Because I didn't take into consideration printing costs. Yeah, the pre-orders that I had done were enough, yes, to cover like the book cover cost as well as the editing cost, and like, you know, hidden expenses that you don't even notice, like advertising. Oh yeah, let me just boost. Yeah, let me just boost. Let me just boost. Yeah, you boost, and then at the end of the month, you're like, what did I do? So yeah, things like that kind of like set me back a bit. And then eventually the book was launched March 2018, which was a lovely success. I remember I had nothing, literally I had nothing. I had no concept whatsoever. But a colleague of mine was like, I'll help you, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that. And like I said, the school where I was working, they kind of rallied behind me and they assisted with the gazebos, with the decor, and this, that, and the other. So one drama that I will share is when the books arrived. So I'm all excited. The books have arrived. The truck is outside. I'm in my office, and the guard comes in, and she's like, "There's a truck out there for you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Yay, the books are here." So the truck driver comes out of the truck, and he hands me, a piece of paper, and I'm like, "What is this?" He's like, "Yeah, the books are they're in the truck, but pay up." The customs charge. So when the books actually, it's actually funny, when the books, because they were printed in South Africa, so they're coming into Botswana. And as they're coming into Botswana, you get charged by BURS, yeah? So I did not know. And it was like 1,000 pula, 1,000 plus pula, and like I'm tapped out. I have no money whatsoever, and these people want me to pay customs. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? So wide-eyed, I walk into my boss's office and I hand her the piece of paper. I'm like, the books are here, but there's just one little problem. And she helped. She's like, you've been through this whole journey. Let's help you. And she paid for customs, and that's how I eventually got the shrink. With hope. The delay was even worse. The books were slated for December, again, December 2020. But I was only able to launch June of 2021. Can you imagine, from December till June? And excuse me, this time I did the same thing as I did with the shrink. I did pre-orders, and the pre-orders this time were actually way more than with the shrink. I think people had read the shrink, and there had been a little bit of publicity about the shrink. And so when I said, oh, I'm launching my next book, people kind of rallied up and they were like, we want your copy, we want your copy. Yeah. So the drama around hope, I'll tell you now, it's a little thing called editing. Why I decided to ditch the lady that helped me edit The Shrink, only goodness knows. But I decided, let's try somebody else. There was this lady that had edited another book under my company. And at the time, because I was working full time, I didn't have time to kind of like go through everything that she had done. I literally did not have time. So I was like, okay, you're the editor, please just, go through everything. She was paid, everything was smooth. Then we sent everything to the author. And the author's like, yeah, everything's great. Send it to print. I was like, okay. So we send it to print. Mind you, I haven't read it. I haven't read this book. So come December, it's a holiday. And I just retired. And I was like, let me just pick up this book that we've done under my company, the first book, because before I was just a guinea pig using my own company and to publish The Shrink. Then another author said, oh yeah, I love what you've done with The Shrink. Can you please do the same with my book? And that's how I ended up with this client. And so I'm on holiday. We go up to Kasane, which is on the tip of Zambia, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. So if you're in Kasane, you're able to either nip to Namibia, nip to Zambia and see the falls, or nip to Zimbabwe as well. It's a nice little tourist town. So I'm there and I decide, let me just relax and just, go through this book. From page 1, there were mistakes galore. And I'm like, what? And I am giving my book hope to this lady to edit. And you get like silly mistakes and silly errors. And I'm like, you're not serious. And mind you, I had already paid her like half the deposit. And I'm like, I've just lost a lot of money. And now her editing is not even up to par. So then I pull my book from her and I'm like, no, this is not going to happen. Anyway, come next year, I think around February, I had a deadline on Amazon. Like Amazon, you can put your book up, or you can put the book cover up and then say that your book is on pre-order and that it will be released on such and such a date. So I had, I think February 28th or something like that as the date that Hope was supposed to be launched on Amazon. And if I missed that date, I was going to be blacklisted. So again, I'm like, what am I going to do? And this time, like, I buckled and I was like crying all day. But then eventually I was like, you know what, you need to get up. Who else is going to do this unless you get up and do it? So I got up and started fighting. And eventually I was able to find this lady. Her name is Ms. Olivia Unopatentoy. She's a senior lecturer at Booth University under the Faculty of Hospitality and Sustainable Tourism. And she's like, yeah, bring your book over here, bring your manuscript, I can do it for you. And I'm like, I only have a month. You need to edit it in a month. And she's like, yeah, no problem. Mind you, she works full time. She's a mom, a single mom. She works full time and she's got A, B, C, and D projects going on. And she's like, yeah, I'll edit for you. And she did a good job. And then there was another lady as well who also did some fact checking for me. And she was like the beta reader. Her name is Paige Adair. So those two like rescued me. They helped me big time with this book. So then eventually the book came out. But there was another little blunder. Pre-orders, they don't cover all the costs. So I was forced to sell something of value so that I was able to print the books, so that the books can arrive, and so that people who have pre-ordered their books can get their books. Kasane. This is my third book. Again, amnesia. It was slated for December. I don't know what it is about December. Clearly, I love December, but December Wankana, it's like refusing. It's like, no. I do not want you, Bridget. So I'm like, yeah, the book is going to come out in December. Pre-orders. Here we go again with the pre-orders. And what I do like book coupons so that I keep track of who has ordered, where they're located, their, all their details so that I don't miss anybody. So December comes and goes. It was supposed to be launched December 2021. We are in May. The books have not arrived. And I had presumptuously pegged for the launch date to be on the 16th of April. That crumbled, it failed, we're in May. Yeah. So the drama around Kasani is actually a beautiful book. And what's nice is that this time around when I was writing it, I had like a specific target audience. And what's beautiful as well is that certain people were also like buying into the concept of Kasani. So I've got a lot of people writing on Kasani at the moment. The one problem, yet again, pre-orders do not cover all the costs of publishing a book. Why do I keep forgetting this? Only goodness knows. So yeah, what's nice is that I've got people now rallying around me, but the books are not here. It's like people are like, so where are the books? You said they would be here on such and such a date, and I'm like, yeah, they were supposed to arrive on this date, but yeah, again, assumptions and presumptions. So there's an organization, Botswana Tourism, that are actually sponsoring the launch of the book, which is brilliant. I'm forever grateful. Yeah. Blunder, do not what is the saying? Do not overpromise and then underachieve, because you lose credibility. And with all three books, actually, what I am super grateful for is that in as much as I fumbled through self-publishing so many times, and I have selective amnesia, but I'm learning as I go. I'm learning as I go. Yeah. Yeah, as mentioned, like I'm learning as I go. So for one, I've noticed that with every book, I've actually failed somehow, or I fumbled somehow, or I didn't think of this, or I didn't think, because I'm a one-woman machine, it's like I have to think of everything from the conception of the book itself or the story to writing it, to making sure that even after the person has edited, I have to reread it. And then I didn't know that there was such thing as a beta reader. I only found out recently. You have to get a beta reader or several beta readers, people that would read your book before it actually goes to print, because your editor's not going to catch every single mistake. And then a beta reader, when they come and look at it with a fresh set of eyes, and then they tell you, oh, fix this or fix that, or, that kind of thing. So beta readers is something that I've learned I need every time I write a book. What else I've learned through is that I shouldn't overpromise and then underdeliver. In as much as I think I am very optimistic. Like I believe when I set my mind on something, I believe it will happen. I don't think about all the hiccups that could occur. So if I say, we're going out, we're going hunting, we're gonna find a unicorn, people around me are like, a unicorn doesn't exist, Bridget. And in my head, I'm like, it does exist. Then I charge out and I look for this unicorn and realize that the unicorn doesn't exist. So in as much as I'm a go-getter and in as much as I'm very optimistic, there's also some form of reality. I need to kind of like backtrack a bit and kind of sit down, as well as share my ideas or chat with people. Or because with writing, when I first started writing, I just wrote. You just write your story, you just write. But I've noticed that in as much as I just write, I also need to have other people's opinions in my story, and for it to become even more realistic. With Kasani, that's the book that I actually realized how getting an expert to read your book before you finalize it all and you're like, this is my baby. Give it to somebody that has the expertise in medicine or tourism or law, things like that. If you do that, then your book then becomes more meaty, or it holds more value and it becomes more realistic, and then it has more meaning. Even though it's fiction, it becomes brilliant if you get what I'm saying. And then another lesson that I've learned is that I shouldn't be too hard on myself. First of all, self-publishing, I knew nothing about self-publishing when I first started. And look where I am now. So I know that I will make mistakes and I will fail. All I can do is not to be too critical on myself, but also not to be too lenient. I need to find a nice balance with that as well. There were times where I was like, you know what, this is not for me, I'm going to stop writing. And then immediately when I say that, let's say a month later, I'll wake up and there's a story in my head and I need to sit down and just start writing it. So I've also learned that writing is actually in my blood. I enjoy writing and I will continue writing stories. I just need either to get my ducks in a row properly or get ducks that know how to put themselves in a row, if that makes sense. Get people who know more about distribution. Like I'm struggling with distribution right now. Get a person that knows how to do marketing more. I'm like literally, I'm very bad at marketing. Like all I do is I knock at a person's door and I'm like, buy my book, write my book, buy my book. So I'm that type of person. Whereas there are different ways of saying buy my book without literally saying buy my book. So yeah, if I can find ducks that actually can put themselves in a row, that would be fantastic. So yeah. Last words would be, I would love to thank the people that have read my books and that have encouraged me to continue writing. And even though I've fumbled and stumbled and made big blunders and all that stuff, they still believe in me. They still want to pre-order. They still want to read my books. To them, all the fumbling and all that is immaterial. They just want the book. They just want the book. And then I have people that pre-order and then they just keep quiet. Like they just keep quiet. A year later, they're just quiet. And they it's like they trust me and they trust that the books will arrive. And I value that so much because being a one-woman show, it's exhausting. I get days or weeks where I just need to take a step back and just go into the bundus or something, because it's exhausting. And then what I've also learned is that I will stumble, and the way that I have stumbled, in as much as you do learn and what you've been through becomes like a stepping stone so that you improve. I mean, I've learned that I have improved in that, yes, I do pre-orders, but this time I'm determined to get sponsors. Pre-orders will not even cover, like, you know, you think it'll cover from the book cover right up to printing the books. That's not the end. Then there's actually marketing the books, launching the books, and going to all these different locations. You need accommodation, you need food, you need transport, all these logistics. Pre-orders are not going to cover all that. So what I've learned is that in as much as, yes, I'm self-publishing and I don't have enough funds to, you know, I don't have those legs, those financial legs that will get me to where I need to be. So through the journey that I've been through, I've really learned that getting a sponsor is something very important. And I'm, like I mentioned before, I'm very grateful that Botswana Tourism is on board with sponsoring me for the Kasani book launch. You know, there's a saying, or not a saying, a quote by Thomas Edison. He said, he hasn't failed. He just said, I just found, you know, 1,000,001 ways not to do this. And I know that it won't work, you know? So it's the same with self-publishing. It's not like you failed, you've just learned an easier way of achieving a certain thing. And if you don't make those mistakes, how are you supposed to learn? How are you supposed to grow? So those blunders that I've been through have helped me to be on the biggest blunder. So yeah, if I didn't have blunders, I wouldn't be here. And then another lesson that I've learned is that getting published is not the end of the story. Actually, it's the beginning. In as much as Exclusive Books has said, you can have your books in all of our stores, I don't have the books to put them in all of the stores. So, you know, you get the books published and then they can either sit in your home in these boxes, or you find a way of moving them and putting them into these stores. So that's another thing that I need to, you know, do. So yeah, another last word is thank you for having me here and for helping me reflect on what my blunders have been and what I've learned. Because you don't like sit down and say, oh, what are my blunders? What have I learned from this? No, unless somebody says, look, sit down, self-analyze. Yeah. So I've never done that with the shrink, with hope. It's only now when the biggest blunder has actually come to me and I'm like, yeah, you know, I need to do A, B, C, and D. Let's do A, B, C, and D better. You know, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm very grateful that you invited me tonight.
Okay, thank you so much. Bridget or Brigitta, come through. Just switch on your video. Colleagues, if there's any questions or comments, just share your comments or questions on the chat. Bridget, just switch on your video, come through. I have a couple of questions and let's.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Are you good?
Yes, I'm great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well done. How do you feel?
I felt like I was going through all the experiences again.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I was going to say it just brings back a lot of stress.
So how did you feel when the delivery guy comes, he's got your books, but here's the invoice for customs, right? How did you feel?
It's like one of those moments where you're like, I did not know that there's such thing as customs. You know that there's such a thing as customs, but you don't know until they come and they're like, yeah, pay for this. You're thinking, well, I was thinking through, because when you send money to the printers, you're thinking it's all covered. Yeah. But then no, it's not all covered. So then, yeah, so that's one thing that I had to learn.
A lot of people, and I'm sure some of the people on this platform want to write books, right? I mean, I've published 2 books, self-publishing as well. So I know what you're talking about. I know the struggles that you're talking about. You know, and I know a lot of people when they want to write books and, you know, they are gatekeepers, publishers. It's just, you know, getting a big, well-established publishing company is just a nightmare. Mm-hmm. You know, what was your understanding of what self-publishing meant before you went through this?
I don't think I actually thought it through. I think I was just so excited about getting the book out there that you don't even think it through.
Yeah.
You just don't think it through. Up until, it's like I wrote the manual. It took me years, actually. I think about 5 years to write The Shrink. And then after that, I sat and I was like, so what's the next step? And I was like, oh, I should get somebody to edit. And then that person wants money. Fortunately, I was working at that time, so that also helped. And then after that, it was like, oh, then you need a book cover. So I also went into like these support groups on Facebook that deal with writers and authors and things like that. So catching things and also like finding the right person for the right kind of look for my book was also quite a journey as well. So it's not easy. It's not like, okay, you have the money, let's get it done. In as much as, yes, you have the money, you want it to be like quality, and you want something that when somebody looks at it, they're like, wow, you know? And that's what I wanted with my books.
Yeah. So, I mean, artists, I mean, I think you'd consider yourself an artist, right? Because writing is art. And if you are to write novels, especially if you are to write novels, you need to be an amazing artist because you are painting a picture through words. And, you know, we know successful artists or performers or entertainers, whether it's Nelson Makamo or Black Coffee or Trevor Noah, they have managers, right? So they focus, they are very good at the artwork, and they say, I need somebody who's going to manage me because I know nothing about this. Have you thought about a manager, maybe?
I have. And I remember talking to a close relative of mine. He's a singer and he's here in Botswana. His name is Lezibo. And he said to me, get to know your trade first. In as much as, yes, you want to relinquish certain things, get to know your trade first. And then when you do get that manager, when you see something not right, you'll be able to catch it. Whereas if you just went to the manager before you went through all the nitty-gritties, you won't be able to catch if something goes wrong or if something goes haywire. So I think going through all this stuff does help me know this is the next step, that's the next step, this is what needs to happen. If a client is complaining about this, this is what has happened. The manager doesn't need to come and sit down with me and tell me A, B, C, and D. I already know what's happened. So I think that's what I appreciate about the journey as well. I would appreciate a manager now and like a team behind me, because like I mentioned on the video, it's taxing. It's insanely taxing. There are days where I just want to turn off I actually do. There are days where I turn off my phone and I just don't want to talk to anyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So knowing what you know now, having been through 3 books, you know, Hope, The Shrink, and now Kasane, knowing what you know now about self-publishing, would you still want to go that route? Why?
It's fulfilling. At the end of the day, it's like, let's say, an athlete or a runner. They do all this training, and even if they don't come off as number one, the fact that they've finished or they've accomplished that race, they cross that finish line and it's fulfilling, like you've achieved something. So I think that's what I enjoy the most. It's like I've written something, I've achieved something. And then on top of that, when I get reviews, like the only reason why I got the sponsor was on a tourism, they saw the cover of Kasani and they were blown away. And that's my work, like that's my work. And I'll still self-publish.
Okay. So you've got 3 books, and I'm sure there's others coming. Have you made money from these books? Would you say you have made money from these books?
I sat down with my brother once, I think it was sometime last year, with Hope. And I was like, you have this B&B and it's doing so well. Why didn't you tell me that you make a loss like the first couple of years with like your business? He says, no, you don't tell people that you'll make a loss, otherwise they'll never try. So you make a loss.
Yeah.
With the first 3 books, actually, I think the 3rd book is the one that's actually gotten me a bit further.
Yeah.
You're building something. You're not trying to break even. You're not trying to make a profit. You're building something. And then after building that something, that's when you'll get the rewards from it.
Yeah. Awesome. So, I mean, it's like, I'm assuming your short answer is I'm not making money now. That's your short answer, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
But I mean, it's like your Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, and Love, who has written other books before, but people didn't know about them until she wrote this one big, blockbuster. And suddenly people started reading her previous work, because of that. So that's how you get the reward. But, here's my view, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm still not convinced that in Africa and South Africa, you can make a living from writing books.
You're not convinced?
Can you make a living from writing books in Africa, in South Africa, in Botswana?
Let me answer that question in a year's time.
Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. Eugene on chat is asking, do you have a mentor?
I don't. I would say I have people around me that encourage me, but I don't have a specific mentor. And I also get encouragement, or is it experience, that sort of thing, when reading other books. That's how I'm able to kind of hone my skill as well. And I'm the type of person that when I'm watching a movie, I'll have a journal. And if they use a word that I've never heard before, I'll jot it down, and then I will Google and find out how to use that word in my next novel. So I don't have a specific mentor, no.
Okay. Motekha is asking, have you tried electronic publication methods such as ebooks, audiobooks, and what's your experience in terms of the costs to get the books to readers? Have you looked at those options?
Not audiobooks. Some people have asked me about audiobooks, but I haven't done that yet. But ebooks, my books are on Amazon and they're on Scribd, So with Amazon, Instagram is actually helping at the moment. I'll boost now and then to certain countries, but then you've got like friends and friends of friends that recommend. And then when you use the right hashtag, you get people from like recently, I got a lady from Switzerland that's like, oh, I want to come to Botswana. And she bought all 3 books through Amazon. So once you upload it on Amazon, you don't do anything. Amazon basically, if you don't advertise, obviously people won't know about your books. but like the printing, Amazon does all that, and then they deliver, and then they take a certain percentage from the amount that you would have said your book costs. So then you get a certain percentage, and then they get a certain percentage. So yeah, I do get like an odd 100 Bula or 200 Bula from Amazon. But with certain organizations in Botswana, like BITC, they assist with advertising internationally. So that also helps. I've signed up with them, so hopefully very soon I'll be able to work with them.
Okay. And another question from Nkuli is, do you train other authors or aspiring authors, or do you mentor somebody who wants to write their book? Given the experience that you have being on your third book, your book is on Amazon, do you use that experience to mentor others?
I do get here and there people asking me about publishing or self-publishing, and I do give them the time of day. Like, they can send me whatever that they've written. I wouldn't say send me the whole manuscript, like send me a chapter or something, and then give me like a synopsis of what the book is about. And I'm able to sit with them and discuss whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, and then give them pointers here, there. And like recently, I think it was last week, there was a gentleman that wrote beautiful writing. Like, he's very talented, but it's an autobiography. And I was like, with that, it's a bit fun, not funny, but it's a bit, you can get into a bit of a sticky situation when you don't get permission from certain individuals that you put into that book, and you can get into a lot of trouble. So things like that, I would just discuss with them. Have you talked to, this person that you're adding them to the book? Whereas fiction, I mean, like, you can come up with any scenario, but fiction is also based on reality. So like, my characters are based on certain things that have happened in my life. So, and certain things that have happened to my friends, but then I'm not saying, this friend of mine, Billie Jean, has done A, B, C, and D. I'm just writing, Tori has done A, B, C, and D, Okay. Yeah.
So have you killed your boyfriend on one of your novels? Because you know what, he had you so bad, and you're like, I'm gonna kill him in my novel. Have you done that?
Oh my goodness, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah,
but have you written about people that when they read your book, they're like, wow, this is me? Have you had that?
Yes.
Not yet.
Yes.
You have?
Especially with Kasani. My mom was reading it the other day, and she's like, oh, this is when this happened. This is when that happened. I'm like, Mom, shh.
Okay. All right. Two last questions before we move on. How long does it take to write, to finish writing a book? Can you give a time frame generally, or
not really? It depends on how free you are. Like I said, the shrink took me about 5 years. That's because I was traveling, I was working full time. Then Hope took me, I think, 1.5 years. Kasani took me 6 months.
Yeah.
So I wasn't working when I was writing Kasani. I wasn't working full time. So it just depends on how much time you have on your hands and how much creative juices are flowing. Yeah. Okay,
great. Last question from me. There are a lot of people, I meet a lot of people who want to write books. They want to write books, and they're like, yeah, I want to write, and I don't know where to start. Some people are afraid that other people will read their works and, they won't like it. What's your advice to people who want to write books, and, some say, I want to write a book, but I don't think I'm a writer, for instance. What's your advice?
I would advise them to do what I did, like start a blog, get some feelers out there, because that's how I started. Because I was like, my writing is not good enough. And it was just an outlet for my emotions. I'd never thought that I would become an author. So eventually, getting all that feedback from people, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. Or, oh, okay, people actually like this. And, oh, okay, people want more from what I can offer. And that's what gave me a bit of confidence. Whereas if you just keep it to yourself, you'll never know.
Yeah. Okay. I have other questions, but I think for the sake of time, if we are left with time at the end, I'll bring them through and we'll discuss them. One of them being that, would you make movies out of your books? I think The Shrink has to be a book, but what do I know? But we'll come back to that later on. Thank you so much, Bridget, and thanks for coming through. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you just in a moment. Thanks. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you so much. And let's move on to our next. So what we'll then do now is, before we get to Mr. Carel Motshekga's talk, in our last MBB, My Biggest Blunders, we had one poem from Struggles Productions that they actually did, but we could not play it because of some technical issues. So we decided it's a very quick poem, and we decided let's rather play it quickly. And I know Nkuli is here, the producer from Struggles Production is here. We'll just have a quick chat with her, and then we get into our last speaker.
My biggest blunder.
The biggest blunder I've done in business.
My definite biggest blunder.
Well, depending on how you look at it, it's probably from all the reasons.
The heart feels the pain, but the mind goes insane, and the soul won't break loose cause it's covered in chains. And if we stay thinking it's gonna be okay, we even pray every day so God can show us the way. I say we believe lies and touch our minds while our eyes are filled with subtle water which defines our cries. Oh help me, Christ, we say, with so many complaints that can conduct 1,000 books filled with angry essays. As we say, education is the key, but the government changes the locks. How can we grow if we constantly neglect our major flops? We be looting shops like black sheep. We bound to stand out from the flock. If you're still questioning my mood, well mine is an opposite of a trendy sock. If you still need to be moved, well my poetry says stop. Enough is enough with the violence, the act of being tough. Now our bruised egos have painted a picture that makes us tough. And if we're tough, let's protect those we love so we can be a happy nation, and that will be easier for us to love. And while we laugh, we heal our wounds. But for now, let's go back to our roots, and little by little we'll be changing the mood so we can cut on the groove and stop blaming the booze. Peace.
All right, awesome. Nkuli, quickly, let's just have a quick chat with you. We had a full chat with you the last time. Just come through and let's just have a quick chat just to see how things are going since Tammy has passed on. Nkuli Leko. Okay, I'm not so sure. Miss Koza. Okay, Nkuli Leko is shy. Nonkul. All right, she might be having network issues. Okay, let's move to the last speaker. I've known Mr. Motekha forever. It was, I don't know, I can't even remember, early 2000, if I'm not mistaken. You know, a friend, a business we discuss business, we discuss all these things. He's an entrepreneur. He's based in South Africa, Pretoria, and he's got an interesting story as well. And he's here. So please, when you have any questions, should you have any questions for him, please, colleagues, just put it on chat, and then we'll ask him those questions. So let's welcome on My Biggest Blunder stage, Mr. Carel Motshekga.
My biggest blunder.
The biggest blunder I've done in business.
My definite biggest blunder.
Well, depending on how you look at it, it's already from all business.
Well, never let a good crisis go to waste. My name is Carel Motshekga. I'm the founder and the director of EL Journey Miscellaneous Services, a professional company offering complementary services in different sectors. The company was founded in 2012, and it has been operating successfully since then, with quite a lot of predicaments that we had faced and that we've went through. So my story today is about a huge blunder that the company went through in 2017. We got an opportunity to tender for a project. It was a project for manufacturing ECD furniture for schools in Limpopo and Mpumalanga through an organization, I think it's an NPO from the United States of America, but based in South Africa. So they advertised the project. I came across the project. I was interested. Then I called someone that I know that is already in that particular industry. I told the gentleman that I came across an opportunity that I think he qualifies more for it, but I want us to partner. So in principle, the guy was keen for us to go into this project together. So we decided to put together all the compliance documents that we needed for this particular tender. Then we did the project. We submitted all the required returnable documents. Then after a few months, the project was awarded to our company. So then after the project was awarded to our company, then we had to sit down, come up with a strategy in terms of how we're going to execute the project. So we sat down. The first thing that we had to discuss, of which we did discuss during the inception of contesting for this particular project, we discussed the profit sharing mechanism strategy for us to say, okay, how are we going to share profit after we've executed this project. Then we had to discuss that, but the gentleman somehow decided to change the agreement that we previously had when we were contesting for this particular project. And he said to me, with the experience that he has, he feels that it will be fair for him to take 80% of the profit of the project. Then I walk away with 20%, of which I felt it was unfair. And I said to him, no, unfortunately we cannot continue with this agreement together, to work together in this particular project. Of course, I needed his experience. He's got all the experience, he's got all the equipments that I needed to manufacture the equipments that were needed for those particular schools. Then the gentleman then said to me, he was fair enough and kind enough to say to me, no, he will walk away. However, he will refer me to companies that can assist me in terms of supplying the materials that we needed in order for us to produce what needs to be produced. Then he also gave me workmanship. He gave me the guys that were good in producing the school furniture. Then, okay, we agreed with the guys. I agreed with them in terms of payment and everything that was basically essential for the execution of the project. Then the first thing that we had to do was to sit again. After I've sat with the guys, we looked at the designs of the furniture. We looked at the type of the materials that we're going to need. How much is it going to cost? Then, yes, the most, I can say, biggest predicament started then, when we're drafting out a plan to execute the project. We needed capital. Then I had to sit down with my banker. I asked my banker to assist me with funding. Unfortunately, at that particular stage, the company was going through a lot of strict debts. So the bank says we do not qualify to get the funding that we needed. The company had a little bit of capital that was a surplus for us to use, but it was not enough. Then I had to start approaching individuals that I felt could assist us. One gentleman who happens to be my business mentor came through. He assisted us with the large sum of capital that we needed. And the other two gentlemen as well, who were just my close friends, who came through, assisted me with capital as well. Then we decided to say, okay, no, now it's time for us to execute the project. Then we went around. We had to hire a factory where we were going to do the production of the furniture. So we hired a factory. We got a factory. We hired the factory. We got all the staff that needed to work with us. Then we started to also sourcing out the transport companies that will assist us after we've manufactured this particular furniture to different schools. We had approximately 50 schools, both from Limpopo and Mpumalanga, 50 schools that we had to deliver this furniture to. Then, so what we did was to talk to the logistics company. They gave us the code. I felt that the code was too much for us, and I decided to source other companies that can assist us with the logistics services. But what I had not taken into cognizance at that particular time was what this first company was offering in terms of the goods in transit insurance and the time frame of delivery and everything. So the other company, which was more affordable, they were not offering the good in transit insurance and stuff like that. And I had assumed and reached a conclusion that nothing will happen to whatever that we have produced. You know, our goods are safe. They'll be delivered from point A. They will move from point A, be delivered to point B. So then, so what happened is that during the phase where we had to start dispatching the furniture in phases, the first load went through. It was a success. The second load, I remember it had to leave here in Pretoria on a Friday. I think it was on a Friday evening. We had arranged with the schools at that particular area in Mpumalanga that, okay, some of this furniture are going to be delivered during the weekend. So we arranged with the principals that the schools must make a provision for someone who can open the school gates and the classrooms for us to deliver the furniture. Then on Monday, we will come through again for the delivery note forms to be signed so that the school accept the furniture the way it is. So then, the biggest challenge, the second biggest challenge came through when one of the trucks that was going to deliver the furniture somehow, because of the type of the road in that particular area, the truck somehow dropped the furniture. The furniture was messed up. I got a call from the driver. He informed me of what has happened. Then I said, okay, no, it's fine. I'll speak to the school principals that were expecting this furniture. I'll also speak to the truck owner to explain the situation to him and to find the middle ground in how we're going to resolve this particular issue. So then I spoke to the school principals. I said, this is the challenge. They must just give me time to try to solve the issue. Then I'll also speak to the client who has awarded us this particular project. I'll speak to the client on Monday and explain to them this has happened. Then the first thing that I did was to drive to Mpumalanga to go and take pictures, to gather evidence, and to write a report in terms of what has happened before I speak to the client on Monday. So I did that. I drove to Mpumalanga the following day. I went there, I gathered all the information, I took the pictures, and of course I had to also engage the driver in terms of what has really happened. Then I called the owner of the truck as well, and I said to him, this has happened, and I shifted the blame on him. And the truck owner said to me, but you can't shift the blame on us. Our responsibility was just to deliver the furniture. This predicament is beyond their control, and there's nothing that they can do at that particular time. And there was no good in transit insurance. So the good in transit insurance that I avoided with the first logistics company, the second one, which was more cheaper, did not have that good in transit insurance, of which at that particular moment it was something that we needed, something that was very crucial for us. So then the truck owner, I said to him, okay, no, it's fine. Since you cannot take the responsibility and it's not something that we can just keep on going around without finding a solution, what I will then do is to find ways to fix this particular furniture. Then I spoke to the school principals. They understood. Monday, I arranged a meeting with the client. I went to meet with the client. I told the client what happened. I showed them the pictures. The client said to me, no, look, unfortunately, this is going to push us to the point where we have to terminate your contract because of the time frame, that even if we have to give you time to fix this furniture, it's really going to be something that is beyond what we had agreed upon in the contract. So it was a very bitter pill to swallow. And I said to him, look, let's find common ground. Let's find ways we can fix this, something that we can do, and I give you the type of the furniture that you wanted. The client said to me, look, let's try to perhaps find amongst that furniture that is broken, the one that can be quickly fixed. Then let's take that one, you fix that one, and you take it back to school. The rest of the furniture that is damaged, we will appoint another company to start from the onset. We'll give them a certain time frame. They've got all the resources, they've got the trucks, they've got the workmanship. Yeah, so meaning they've got more experience than us. So we can give this tender to them to continue with it and deliver. I mean, for me, what was important at that particular moment, when the director of that organization said that, I always wanted to maintain a healthy relationship with my clients. So what was important for me was to deliver what the client had wanted at that particular time. So what we did was to agree. We signed an agreement that, okay, no, it's fine. We had identified some of this furniture that can be fixed. We fixed it, and the client said, we'll pay you a certain portion of the money for the project. The rest, it's something that we're going to lose as a company. And at that particular moment, when we did our books, we realized that we're going to lose 500,000 on that project. That's what we lost on that particular project that we had invested, and the money did not come back. So yeah, so it was a big learning curve for us. Then I went back to my team. I explained to them. I explained to the guys that were producing the furniture. I said to them, okay, the furniture that is left here, let's take it back to the school. We took it to the schools. It was delivered. We signed the delivery form. The principals were happy with the furniture that was remaining and the one that we also fixed. Then what we did was that, okay, we accepted. I spoke to the guys that were working because we didn't even have enough money to pay them their salaries. So I just made arrangement with them that please give me a period of 3 months. I'm working on a turnaround strategy. You will get the money back. So the guys agreed. So the company continued to operate and exploring different avenues to pipeline work that can assist us to raise capital to pay all the debts that we had, all the people that had borrowed us money, and the suppliers that had given us some of the material. So then we did that. We strengthened our corporate arm by diversifying to other sectors. and we continued like that, and we started picking up. So yeah, I had to sit and think of ways to recover from the loss that the company had experienced. Of course, this was both financial and emotional loss. I mean, losing approximately 500,000 on a project that you had assumed it was going to be a success, but it didn't go the way you had anticipated. So I had to do deep retrospection and think of a turnaround strategy for the company. And we also realized that this had somehow affected the growth trajectory of the company. So then I had to sit down, reevaluate everything, and systematically I also had to have lessons that I've picked up throughout this journey and the predicaments that I came across. The first lesson that I picked up out of this is not to ever in my company, in how I conduct my business, to compromise the quality of the service that I receive from external services on the basis of trying to save money. I realized that it is actually costly to get things cheap. And I said to myself, that will not happen again. I mean, if you compromise things like, if I really did not compromise on the insurance of the logistics company, I was not going to go through these things. Perhaps, yes, there were other challenges that I could have tried to address with the client in terms of the time frame after the furniture had been damaged. But yeah, so I learned that one must never compromise in terms of the price that you receive from external service providers on the basis of trying to save money. I've realized that it's also very crucial, very imperative for one to always surround themselves with people that have got adequate knowledge or experience in that particular industry that you are currently operating in. Mentorship is very important, particularly for the people that are operating within that same structure that you are running your business. So that's something that I believe I lacked by deciding to tell the gentleman that we were supposed to form partnership to walk away. I mean, if I had worked with him and continued on the project, and perhaps just say, look, take your 80%, or maybe negotiate better, that he takes his share, then I keep my share as well. But what's important is that partnership is very crucial. It's a cornerstone to a successful business. Partnership with people that are well experienced, and also to reward them more, those that have got more experience than you, until you acquire that adequate experience as well. So yeah, so those are basically the lessons that I've picked up throughout the business journey. And the good part is that within a period of 5 months, less than 5 months, the turnaround strategy that the company had employed, it worked very well. We recouped all our monies back through other avenues that we're exploring, and we got our money back. We paid all our debts, and everything since then has been a success.
All right. Mr. Motekha, come through. Mr. Motekha.
Yes, Doc.
Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, and yourself.
I'm good. So
Yeah.
you arrive at the what do they call the scene of the crime scene.
Yes.
What do you find? What do you find? Like the truck, what happened?
Look, it was not a pleasant sight to look at, and I mean, you saw the furniture leaving your factory in a good condition, but a few hours later, you see your furniture in a state that you did not anticipate. So the first thing that I did, of course, I mean, I'm one person who always talk about emotional intelligence. I looked at the drivers, I said, what do I say to these gentlemen? Then I spoke to them, I said, look, guys, how did this thing happen? You know, I believe you guys are used to transporting like goods. You are used to transporting large quantities of things. Why did you not avoid something like this? Of course, I mean, I took the human side of things to say something like this can definitely happen. For me, what was important was how am I going to convince the other people to understand that this was just a mistake, that it was not a deliberate mistake, it was a mistake, that we are willing to rectify it. Yeah. It was just unfortunate that it was not, it did not get to the point where I wanted it to get to.
So what does the driver say? I mean, was he falling asleep, or was he drinking, or was the road that bad?
Look, the driver spoke about the road. By the way, this was a rural area. The drivers were getting into a rural area. And he said the way the road was not good. The truck fell into, I don't know, you know, something like a hole, you know, then it did not have balance. Then all the furniture went out.
Yeah. And
yeah, it was just a terrible scene. I mean, even the guys from the community were there to tell me what happened. So when you reflected on the whole thing, you could see that there was no one to blame there. It was just an unfortunate scene. There was no one to blame. Yeah. You know, it was just those experiences. As an entrepreneur, you will know that they might happen. You just have to have a strategy in terms of how you're going to address them, come up with a solution, not to avoid them, you know. So, but yeah, I think one of those, when that happens, it's like you said, oh, perhaps as an entrepreneur, I did think that something like this might happen, and it's happening now, and like this, you know, yeah.
So just to put it out there, don't be surprised when I vanish. I'm expecting load shedding at 8. You know, we South Africans are very innovative. So we have invented this thing called load shedding. So I'm gonna finish very soon. But let's get the conversation going. So, you know, so there's insurance, right? There's good in transit insurance. You get the first quote, you get the second quote, right? How much were you saving here in terms of insurance? I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, was it that a huge difference that you said, you know what, you know, this is too expensive? How much was the difference? How much are we talking about? Is it a 5,000, 5,000 difference?
Look, the difference was 23,000. The difference was 23,000. Yeah. But when you take into consideration the furniture that we missed, I mean, that we lost, it was approximately 900,000, the furniture that was lost. So then you start doing the mathematics that 23,000 was going to save me from 900,000. A value of furniture that I had lost. Hence, we always say that cheap is costly. So I should have just paid that 23,000, not to save it. You see.
But you know, as entrepreneurs, and maybe let me not say all entrepreneurs, but usually startups, insurance is like nothing's gonna happen to, like what you were saying, nothing's gonna happen to my stuff. You know, I'll make sure that I sleep with one eye closed, one eye open, to make sure that nothing happens to my stuff. You know, I mean, would you advise entrepreneurs, startups to say, I was having a session with entrepreneurs the other day, and they were saying, insurance? No, man, are you kidding? We're not paying that. Would you advise entrepreneurs to pay insurance at the beginning?
No, I definitely would advise them to do that. I mean, for instance, I'm in construction. Any project that we currently do now, we must produce all contractors' risk insurance policy. So it's important. You can be doing, for instance, a construction project, your building falls, or your employees get hurt or whatever. So it's important to have insurance. Insurance, it's very important. It will save you from a lot of mistakes that you can make or unforeseen circumstances that you did not anticipate.
So there we go. Okay, so let's talk about why this thing happened. Why did you feel that 23,000 is expensive and therefore you're not going to go for it? What happened in the costing and pricing of this project? Did you guys under cost this or underprice this as a way of getting the project, or was it a function of you don't know anything about furniture, so you're just gonna try and cost below so that you can get the project? Because a lot of entrepreneurs do that. They say, you know what, I need this project, I'm gonna cost lower than everybody else. Was it that a function of under costing to get the job?
Yes, it was a cutthroat type of a situation. The margins were very low for us to get the project. Remember, when we were doing the pricing, when we were doing the documentation, we did it with somebody who was more experienced, someone who knows this industry, someone who had the equipment, someone who knows the corners in terms of where to get the materials at a cheaper rate, or most affordable rate. But unfortunately, we did not continue together. So he's the one who helped us in terms of the pricing in order for us to win the contract. But remember, sometimes pricing does not necessarily determine that you will win the deal. You can be lower on the price, but the client does not trust you, that you are more cheaper, perhaps because you're not going to produce the quality, or you're not going to give them the quality savings.
And then let's go to the 80-20. This happens quite a lot, right? The 80-20 happens quite a lot. So there's this notion when entrepreneurs approach others to partner with them, and then they'll always say, I'm bringing the work, you are bringing the skill. And therefore, because I'm bringing the work, I need 50%. Because you're bringing the skill, I need 50%. At the beginning, when you discuss this with your partner, why did you refuse the 80-20? Before all this happened?
Yeah, remember at that particular time, as an entrepreneur, you're excited. You get the big deal, good figures. You have never received this contract before in your life. And this is a huge breakthrough for you. And someone comes and says, I will leave you with 20 Rand. I'm going out with 80 Rand. And for you, it's like, no, this does not make sense. I'm the one who came across this information. I attended the briefing. My company, as much as it does not qualify, I believe that perhaps what we can try to talk about is going 50-50, and of course, the guy expected me to inject the capital in terms of the material that we're going to buy. I said, I can't inject the capital and you are taking 80%. It does not make sense. It does not make any business sense. So it's just one of those things that I think as an entrepreneur, we need to find a way to discuss from the onset and perhaps bring contractual specialists on board. When you do that it can assist to draft contracts for you guys legally, that we've written this, we've signed this is what we are taking forward when we execute this deal. It's always the biggest predicament in most partnerships. And since then, I've been fearing partnerships, by the way. Even before that, I'm one person who's always been very tactful when it comes to partnership or forging partnership with anybody.
Yeah. So now, knowing what you know now, do you think that the 80-20 split was fair?
Look, after the incident, I was very sober, by the way. Sometimes you get intoxicated, like I said, you just get intoxicated by the figures. But after the incident, you sit, you reflect, and you say, look, I should have went with the 80-20. It was going to be more or much stress less. I was not going to worry about anything. I was just going to receive my 20% and walk away. Then somehow you tend to give yourself a cut that you agreed in that particular project. So yeah, it's just one of those things.
But it's very difficult to say to entrepreneurs, no, you need 20%, and they will say, no, but I brought the work. If I didn't bring the work, you wouldn't get this. But I think with such experience, you realize that there is wisdom to that. Just a few questions on chat. Motekha says, in Afrikaans, they say, goedkoop is duurkoop. So you have really for you, you've lived that experience. $500,000 later, you could have just paid the 20-something thousand insurance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mpolokeng, would it have been cheaper to produce with an experienced partner than to produce on your own?
Look, it would have been cheaper to produce with an experienced partner, because an experienced partner has access to the producers or those who owns means of production. You understand? As much as he did disclose to me in terms of where to get the material, I only discovered later that it was not the main guys who own factors of production. He did not give me his key contacts. He gave me other guys, you see. Because I mean, for him to give me his key contacts, it was going to be more of a competition for him in the future if I wanted to still continue in that market. So yeah, it would have been cheaper if I went with somebody who's more experienced and in that field.
And I think it talks to what Motekha is saying, because she says, as a new entrepreneur, partnering with experienced business, or I'm saying business people, has, for me, not always been a pleasant experience. And I'm assuming that somebody who's more experienced can find easier ways to, sort of pull a wool on your eyes, so to speak. Okay. Last question for me before we close. Are you still making furniture?
I walked away from the market. I walked away from that sector. However, one of the reasons, let me just say this to other entrepreneurs that are watching us here today. The reason I went into that particular sector, when I registered my company in 2012, it was a multidisciplinary services company. We decided that we're not going to focus on one sector. We're going to diversify, like I said, in order to strengthen our corporate arm. Remember, even when we do these tenders, we're doing tenders so that we can get the capital to fund the main vision of the company in terms of what we want to achieve, something that is sustainable, that will not rely on these projects. So hence we went into that project of furniture, and we do quite a lot of them. But what the company does now is construction. We do construction and development. We build high-end houses, we sell them. We do government project in terms of construction. We still do construction. I mean, we still do transport as well. We have a transport company now. So I would definitely, I don't think it was a traumatic experience of that furniture. I don't think I'll go in there now. It's not something that I can do at this moment.
So emotionally, what did you go through? Because
let me be quite frank with you. I was not really. There's a difference between being hurt and being disappointed. I was not hurt. I was disappointed. Yeah. I was disappointed. Yeah. I was disappointed at myself. I'm one person that loves to reflect. I just reflected and I said, look, this was not necessarily anyone's fault. Perhaps, as much as you work with a team, you are a leader. Everything that happened at that instance. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think, taking accountability is very important. Dineo is asking, since you are into multidimensional, which industry is profitable?
Which industry is profitable? Look, if you study the South African economic landscape, you'll understand that we are a diversified economy. There's so many industries, for lack of a better word, that contribute to the GDP of the country. So if you do your research deep in terms of, there's ocean economy that a lot of people are not exposed to, especially Black people. There's ocean economy, which there's a lot of money there. And I remember when I did my research of ocean economy 5 years ago, I discovered that you can go through a training where you get a license to become more like a traffic cop by the oceans.
Okay, I'm not so sure if it's me or it's Carel's network. Hey, we're living in interesting times. While we're still waiting for Carel to come through, Nkuli, can you come through? Nonkululeko? Okay, I'm not so sure. Bridget, can you hear me? Okay, I think maybe you should also come through. I'm not so sure. We're having network issues. I hope I'm not the only one here. In closing, Bridget, somebody asked, would your books be turned into movies? Your views, thoughts? Would you be happy?
I've had a couple of people, yes, allude to wanting to, especially the shrink. But I'm yet to find like a person who's serious. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm not so sure if Carel is back. And Nonkululeko is unable to, she's unable to unmute herself. I'm not so sure what's the issue. Colleagues, I think let's wrap it up here. I mean, we're 30 minutes over time. Thank you so much, Bridget. And yeah, it was quite an amazing experience having you here. And yeah, I want to wish you all the best. And yeah, some of the lessons that came through, you learn as you go. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Get people who can quality check your work, get expert opinions, don't be too hard on yourself. You will make mistakes along the way, but it's okay. And lessons from Carel Motshekga: don't compromise quality of service just to save money. It's costly to get things cheap. I liked that. It's costly to get things cheap. Surround yourself with industry expert. And I think also, to some point, Bridget, you also had a similar lesson. Mentorship is important. Partnering with experienced experts is crucial, and reward your experts more. So those are some of the lessons that we have learned today. Colleagues, please go on. We're going to upload the talks from tomorrow. We're going to upload the talks on our channel. Subscribe so that you are able to get notification. And next weekend, we are doing My Biggest Blunders Polokwane. We are doing it as a first in-person session. So we have got about 6 speakers, 1 room, Saturday, the 9th of July from 10 until 1. We'll have these sessions in 1 room. You'll get to see the speakers. You'll get to hear them firsthand. So if you're in Polokwane, or if you don't mind taking a weekend away, come through to Polokwane. For more information, contact Wamukhetsu. That's her details there. And yeah, we are looking forward to our very first physical contact session. We are hoping to also do sometime Pretoria, Johannesburg, and other cities as well. So thank you so much. If you have a story, if you feel that you have a big blunder you want to share, Wamukhetsu's contact details are there. Her email is there. Please contact her and let's see what we can do. Thank you so much. And thanks to Brigitta, Bridget, and Carel, and Nonku, unfortunately, and Temba, the production team, Tabang, Abuti Tabang, Grace, and Wamukhetsu. And of course, thank you so much for sticking it out until this point. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much and have a lovely evening.